You know, it's funny. I have so many problems with Wonder Woman 1984, as you're about to find out in this spoiler review. In fact, as you can see from the chapter times, it's about an even split. But I still can't wait to watch the movie again, because overall, I just love the world that Patty Jenkins has created here. It's so unique and so magical. I have it later on in my notes, but I'll say it now. The movie glows, not just emotionally, but literally. This is a glowing film, and it's such a cool thing that Patty Jenkins has accomplished in that regard. And also, I'd love for you to watch along with me. I'm going to do a watch-along party on, you guys have voted, so it's going to be on Sunday, December 27th, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you can watch the movie digitally, and I know that the United States and a couple of other countries can, I hope that you will join me. All right, so hello, and yes, welcome to my spoiler review for Wonder Woman 1984, which opens overseas today. Because some of you might be like, what the heck, Grace? Why are you putting your spoiler review up now? Well, not only does the movie open overseas in some countries this week, but it's more than just some. It's 41 countries by Friday. Now, that was Warner Brothers' decision, and it puts all of us in a difficult spot in terms of spoilers. But I'm honored that many of you, and you've told me this, and this means so much, have made it a tradition to watch my spoiler review right after you see the movie. And it's been so long since we've been able to do that with a major film that I wanted to be able to, have a little bit of normalcy in this crazy world we're in right now. So I wanted to make sure this spoiler review was available for the people in those 41 countries. And it's some very big markets. So please, I implore you, if you have seen Wonder Woman 1984 and or have watched this video, I know some of you are going to watch this video anyway, please keep the spoilers to yourself, or at least don't share them online. I mean, obviously you can tell a friend if you want, but you know what? You should ask that friend first if they're okay hearing a spoiler. I'm someone who always loves to hear spoilers. I mean, just be cool about it, man. Just be cool about it. All right, so let's get started. As I said in my non-spoiler review and at the beginning of this review, Wonder Woman 1984 is not a perfect film. So, but I don't want to put too negative a spin on it. Some people, I'm a little nervous about the reaction to this movie. I tried to put people in the right mindset in my non-spoiler review. And I think, I think enjoying this film is only possible if you accept that Wonder Woman is a very unique and different type of hero from the ones that we're used to. I don't think there's any other hero like her. And I think that that's why on the one part she's been so successful for so long, but also I think it's why she always kind of stands apart and hasn't had maybe the same mainstream success that the other heroes have had. So this will be an interesting experiment to see if people can finally embrace who Wonder Woman is, or if she still remains, a little bit off from the group. And speaking of off from the group, I do think it was also a bit of a mistake not to tie this movie into the rest of the DCEU at all. There's no references, not even a cute little wink reference as a joke to any other DC character or DC event. And DC characters have been around for a long time. Even though this is, takes place in the 80s, which is supposed to be way before any of our current heroes show up. Some of them I think would have been kids, right, at this time? I know I saw they released a clip of the mall sequence and someone's like, is that Harley Quinn as a child? DC don't play that game, unfortunately. I think that they should. But anyway, I want to go over what I loved first, and then I'll talk about what, let's say, I think could have been better. All right, so the movie opens in Themyscira, and this sequence really caught me off guard, because while we've seen it teased in the trailers, I had no idea of the epic scope that Patty Jenkins was going to do here. I mean, the sweeping shots of Themyscira, and the arena, and then the beach. I mean, every shot, it was like, come to Themyscira. And I was like, oh, I would like to. It reminds me of the recent Harley Quinn episode where they went there. It was I don't want to ruin that episode if you haven't seen it, but Themyscira was a resort, and it would make an amazing resort. I'd love to go there. And it also really made me want that Amazon TV show. I was like, this is very cool. And I thought that the whole obstacle course was very well thought out. I liked that, and it was very Amazonian, but still, they kept it low tech, which I appreciated. Although that's how I was wondering, how did Robin Wright know that Diana cheated? And it's because she didn't do her flags, so since she didn't touch all the markers and have the flag go down to show that she'd hit the points along the obstacle course. I'm sure they're like, could you use a cooler term than obstacle course? And I'm like, but it's obstacle course. I don't know, whatever. The American Ninja, the Themyscirian Ninja Warrior course. And then you're like, well, why did Robin Wright pull her out so she couldn't win? And she said, you cheated, Diana. And I'd be like, so? I don't remember reading any rules. again, I told you in my non-spoiler review, I'm a Batman person. I'm like, hey, I crossed the finish line first. I won. But anyway, I think that really, when you think back on it, and I had to, because I don't think the movie makes the point clearly enough, it is there for you to connect the pieces. And I know some of you like, I like doing the work myself, Grace. You shouldn't, I mean, again, don't make excuses for the script. But at least it's there. At least the element is there that Diana feels that cheating is wrong and that, you can't win by cheating, which is why she ultimately has to give up Steve because she's cheating. So I thought that was great. Now, I also really loved the Wonder Woman mythology being used here. Sure, none of it made any sense, but Patty Jenkins made me not care. I mean, a little bit of me cared, but I quickly let it go because I was just so in awe of what I was seeing. Like the invisible plane. Sure, there's no way those planes would probably work, like be functioning, and even if they were, have gas in the tank and be near a runway. Because at first I thought she was breaking into a military base, but then I realized it was the Smithsonian, and I'm like, those are museum pieces. They're not functional, but who cares? But then she's like, I'm learning how to turn things invisible like my dad did in Themyscira. And I thought it was funny. She said, I practiced on a mug and I lost the mug. I thought that was pretty funny. So I was like, so you can't uninvisible them? And I'm like, whatever, we have to get off. I thought the whole sequence was funny with oh no, there's radar. And then she made the plane invisible. And when she was starting to do it, I was like, this is stupid and ridiculous. But as soon as she did, I was like, I believe, because it was just so stunning the way it took off and the way the clouds parted for it. It slightly distorted the light so that it shimmered. And then they drove through the fireworks. And I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I love the invisible plane. I've never liked the invisible plane. The invisible plane I've always thought was like Aquaman stupid. But just like the Aquaman live action movie, I now think it's amazing. I'm like, I love it. Although they didn't do the thing where they were sitting in, I love that joke where like if you ride the invisible plane, you look like you're just sitting in the air. But I think that they kind of, I don't know how it totally worked. But again, Patty Jenkins made me not care. It was beautiful. I also love the sequence where she learned to fly. Again, Wonder Woman doesn't have the aerodynamics with her arms to fly like that. But I don't care, because it was so cool. It was as if Alex Ross painted the entire sequence. The way the clouds just were so magnificent, and the way, they photographed Gal Gadot, and she was getting over the emotion of having had to say goodbye to Steve. And it was incredible. So again, even though it made absolutely no sense, I didn't care. I thought it was just absolutely stunning. And I did love seeing Wonder Woman fly. I don't care how she did it. All right, again, next. Cinematography and score. As I've been clearly saying, you can see a theme here. The movie is drop dead gorgeous. And also, I like the fun camera movements. A little Spielbergian and his disciples, like when they had the artifact. Why would they be running an archaeological artifact, back room, artifact business out of a mall? It made no sense, but I don't care, because I liked when they panned and they were like, what's this thing? And I was like, oh, this is like a cool 80s movie. I think it's so great. And I thought, so the cinematography was fantastic down to the camera movements. And then Hans Zimmer's score was thrilling. There was a moment where they were in Maxwell Lord's office and I was like, this music is amazing. Like they were just talking. And I was like, oh my God, I feel the tension. I love it so much. And as I said at the beginning of the spoiler review, I just loved being in this world. And I felt that, Patty Jenkins, as I said in my non-spoiler review, was able to make the Richard Donner Superman Lois scene, which glows itself, for an entire movie. And I just felt so warm and fuzzy in that. Next up, Gal Gadot. Now, in the beginning with Wig, she was a bit wonky and a bit wooden. And I felt kind of bad because I know that her haters, and she has a number of them, which I think is really horrible, are going to pounce on that. I'm like, don't give them anything. And that's something, unfortunately. But as the movie progressed, she just continues to be Wonder Woman physically and personally. I love the line when she didn't recognize who Maxwell Lord was because she doesn't have a television. I'm like, that's so Wonder Woman. She had that weird bat cave or Wonder Cave in one of her closets. I was like, technically you do have a TV, Wonder Woman. That was kind of funny. I liked that. I mean, she's like, I am like Batman and that we're both prepared. I thought that was kind of cute. I don't know how she set it all up. We only saw it really quickly, but I thought it was fun. But anyway, I just think that Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Speaking of Indiana Jones, Spielbergian, I think she's as much Wonder Woman as Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. I mean, it's just incredible casting. In every fiber of her being, she is Wonder Woman. And she nailed all the emotional moments. Like you might say she didn't do a good job with some of the lighter moments in the beginning with Kristen Wiig, but she had such strong emotional points at the end of the film, both with Maxwell Lord and Steve Trevor, which we'll talk about in a moment. And she nailed them. That's hard to do. And so I think you have to give her really strong credit for that. And I could feel her emotion during the flying sequences. Gal Gadot did all that. That's not a special effect. That's her acting. All right, so anyway, speaking of, emotional moments, saying goodbye to Steve. Holy crap. This was so sad. This is the scene that destroyed me. I might be all cried out over it because I talked to somebody about it after seeing the movie and I broke into tears on the phone and they were like, okay. And I'm like, wait till you see the movie, you'll understand. And you're going to be crying too. You better have tissues to watch this movie. It's ridiculous. But and then Steve says to her, I had a great life, Diana, because you were in it. And I'm like, oh my God. See, still, maybe not totally cried out. I mean, these lines are so emotional, that probably helped them with their acting. I couldn't believe he said that. And then she cries, I'll never love again. And I did think at that moment somewhere, Bruce Wayne was like, challenge accepted. But she's like, I'll never love again. And then they have one final kiss goodbye. And then she tears herself away from him. So she just can't even bear to look at him anymore because she just has to, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, ripping off a Steve. And it was just so emotional. And then, to really get you just hear Steve's voice call after her. And you can't see him anymore because he's probably disappearing. I say, I can't, I'm still crying. And he says, no matter where I am, Diana, I'll always love you. And it was just the most amazing, sad thing ever. And it was just so beautiful. And I can't believe it. Damn it. You'll see? I mean, just the way it was done. And then she just had to keep walking with her back turned. I thought when that happened, I was like, she's going to beat the crap out of Max, boy. I sure would. But she never did because she's very mature. Good for you, Wonder Woman. I would have beat him to a pulp. But that's fine. I've heard they're trying to bring Steve back, maybe via Flashpoint, because I don't know how much more of this we can take. All right, so let's talk about Steve Trevor. It was really great to have Steve back. As you can see, it was just so great. He's just so great. I loved seeing them as a team again, searching Max's office, breaking into Max's office. That was just so great. In the desert, I mean, I love that Wonder Woman can have a boyfriend who is her equal, but still doesn't take away from her. I mean, that's just, every feminist is like, oh my God, this is so great. Because so often Hollywood has a strong woman, and the price for that is, emasculating her love interest. And I think that's really unfortunate. And it makes people feel that strong women are a negative. So that you can have a strong woman and a strong man coexist and be in love, it's just so great. I loved it. I loved them so much together. I also really like Steve Trevor, as I said in my non-spoiler review, the way he looked at the future. Not comedic, but with wonder. Wonder, get it? Like when he rubbed his hand along the side of the plane, the Smithsonian, I was just like, oh my God, Steve, you're such a great person. And I love, speaking of the planes, I love when he says, you have a plane that goes from New York to Cairo nonstop. And Diana's like, yeah. And she's like, but I don't know how we would get you on it. You don't have a passport because he's an imaginary being. Although that guy probably did. They should have just searched his apartment. But anyway, we'll talk about how they brought Steve back in the not good or could have been better section. But anyway, I love that Steve's response was, I don't want to ride this plane, I want to fly it. And it just showed how proactive he is. He's such a great character. I love him so much. I also loved when the DC subway went by and he was just like, this is so great. I was like, stay away from the train, Steve. But I thought that Patty Jenkins succeeded in making 1984 DC seem very futuristic, even though even today, I guess because Steve never saw the Jetsons, so he wasn't promised a certain future. So to him, this is quite the cornucopia of futuristic delights. I guess we've just been overpromised by Hollywood at this point, so we're always, disappointed going forward. But to someone from the 1940s, no, earlier than that, in World War I, 1910s. This is phenomenal. And to see it through Steve's eyes was really just, as I said in my non-spoiler review, not only beautiful, but also quite sad because, he deserves to see it. He's a heroic person. He's great. And with no superpowers, he's just so great. I love you, Steve. All right, so anyway, Maxwell Lord. I love you too, Max. I thought his character was phenomenal. I didn't expect to love Maxwell Lord as much as I did. I loved his giant empty office that became filled as the movie went on. I thought that was really a great visual. I thought that was very strong. And so his powers, he turns himself, his one wish is that he wishes to be the wishing stone. And the way he has to use that is that he manipulates people into making a wish they don't even realize they're making. Sometimes for Max, he's like, don't you wish that for me? I mean, that was amazing. And then on top of that, that there's a cost, that he gets to decide what that cost is. I just couldn't believe that. Like before, the stone just seemed to randomly choose, I guess, but I loved that element of what they did with Maxwell Lord. To me, it's much more interesting than the mind control that he has in the comics. That he has to, like the subterfuge of it, right? The cleverness that he has to get, and everyone only gets one wish, so he uses people up. I thought that was great. So, so I thought that was great. And then I love that the wish is granted somewhat organically to make it, so it just doesn't come out of nowhere, like, Aladdin. So I thought that was great. Now, some of the cool elements about wishing. I thought it was very touching that his son made a selfless wish for his father. And Maxwell Lord was like, no, you wasted your wish. And he just didn't, because Max was all messed up about, what wishes should be. I thought that was great. And I liked the Cheetah's one line where she said, wishing to be like you, Diana, has some surprises, because she just wanted to be like Diana Prince. She had no idea that would mean also being like Wonder Woman with the powers and stuff like that. So I thought that was just really cool. I loved it. But I didn't think the powers were very clear at first. Like when he got his business partner to wish success for the company, and then Maxwell Lord says, and I shall take all your shares. I was like, but Max, you already used your wish. Because they didn't establish before then that there was a price for the wishes. Because the guy who wished for coffee, and it's not like he got fired a second later or something, or a couple of minutes later. So I wasn't really, at that point, we didn't realize there was a price for these wishes. Like when Diana was losing her powers, clearly, because she couldn't break the lock at Max's office, I felt that her powers were being siphoned off to Barbara, not that it was a price for getting Steve back. Because wasn't the price that he was in someone else's body? Like, careful what you wish for. You want Steve back, but it doesn't look like Stevie's in someone else's body. So that to me was confusing. But once I realized what it was, I thought it was so cool. Like the whole sequence in Cairo when Maxwell Lord gets that guy to give up, and then he doesn't have the oil. So he takes his security, so he has to go on the fly. And Max says, then I take your security forces. I mean, that was just so great. I just loved that stuff. And I loved when Diana said, you have to give me the stone back. And Max said, you're looking at it. Just the way Pedro Pascal said that. I also loved when he delivered the line when he was leaving his business partner's, or should I say former business partner's office, and the police were showing up, the feds. And he's like, oh no, are we in any danger? And just the way he said that, I was like, Pedro Pascal, you're on fire here. And the guy was like, no, it's just tax fraud. And you're like, oh, I love it. It was great. I just loved Maxwell Lord. I hope that he comes back as well. We'll talk about the big finale. That's both good and bad, so it goes at the very end. But it has some good in it too. All right, on that note, let's talk about the things that I think could have been improved. All right, so I didn't like how Steve comes back. I understand, as I told you in advance, that it's a nod to Heaven Can Wait, which was a very popular film from that time period, which was actually, that was a remake, but it's a little bit different. But anyway, the Warren Beatty film. So yes, Steve Trevor is in someone else's body. Now, in the Warren Beatty film, he takes the body of someone who was killed. So that person's not using it anymore. It's just a flesh pack. It's just a flesh suit that, Warren Beatty can wear. But here, this guy's not dead, as we discover in the Christmas scene. Like, I kept waiting for them to figure out why he might have died, like to see parts of his lifestyle in his apartment where you're like, oh, he OD'd or something, right? No, they just borrowed his body and Diana had sex with him without him knowing. I thought that was kind of weird. I thought it was weird. And I guess, and I think that even Diana, to be honest with you, I got the feeling from the movie that even Diana didn't really see Steve. She just saw Steve in her mind because she wanted to and because he was in there. But I mean, if she was really being honest with herself, what the big theme of the movie, if she put her truth lasso around herself, her lasso of truth, she would have been like, it doesn't look anything like Steve. Because when he looked in the mirror, it was, that's also right from Heaven Can Wait. But anyway, so I didn't like that. I was like, why is this in here? It just seemed like an unnecessary complication to make. And it wasn't even that sad. It was just weird and made Steve being back a little bit unsatisfying in that regard. But I liked when she saw, but I did, even the needs to be improved has some positives. Because I told you I like this movie. So when she saw him in the Christmas sequence in the end, the original dude whose body they borrowed, I thought that was really nice. I was waiting for her to ask him out because Steve said, you got to find someone else, Diana. And I got to say, I really like that she didn't. Because I don't think it would be easy to get over Steve. And I think it was really nice that she and I don't know if she ever will. Because I think they're going to find a way, I'm hoping, and I've heard they're trying to find a way to bring Steve back. But I did like that interaction. I liked the Christmas setting. It was all very Wonder Woman. And I thought it was funny that he was wearing the outfit. I didn't think the Steve trying on clothes thing worked. I didn't think it was that funny in the actual movie. It was funny in the trailers, but for some reason, maybe because we already saw it, and they had no other good jokes left for the movie, but they sucked all the fun out of that interaction. But, Diana tried to put him in that outfit that did not work on Chris Pine, and I don't think it totally worked on this guy either. It was a very European look. I thought it was a funny give and take where he's like, my friends all told me it was stupid, and I'm like, I think your friends might have been right. It just doesn't work on you, buddy. But part of me still feels that Diana should have stayed in Europe. I liked having one of the Justice League be based out of Europe, especially because of Gal Gadot's international quality. But that's fine. But anyway, so I like that sequence, although I did feel bad for that guy. All right, so anyway, I wonder why he wasn't like, I wonder where I've been for a couple of days. I blacked out. That's alarming. And she sees him at the doctor's office getting a CAT scan. All right, I also felt the lasso and the armor could have been improved. The lasso moved like the magic carpet. Speaking of Aladdin, I was like, how is it wrapping itself back up? You can't lasso a bullet. Things like that bothered me. And also, I would totally buy that the lasso of truth can make you see the truth, but that it can make you see anything, that seemed to ridiculous to me. Also, I was like, why can't she just tell Steve about what happened with the armor and we have a good old-fashioned flashback? I don't need the lasso to be involved in this. Speaking of the flashback to the original armor, that sequence was really disappointing to me because she's like, an original Amazon wore this to fend off mankind as we escaped to Themyscira. And I was like, we're going to see a cool sequence where an Amazon warrior, like one of the best Amazon warriors of all time, fights off all these men as the women behind her run off to Themyscira. But instead, she just curled up like in the equivalent of a Themyscirian ball on the floor while everyone kicked her. And I was like, why are these guys continuing to kick this golden bird? Instead, they should have been like, she's not fighting us back and she's not moving. Let's go after those women who are escaping. It made absolutely no sense to me. I was like, there's no way these cavemen or these, whatever kind of men they were, are that stupid. And also, it was disappointing to me that she just kind of curled, this original Amazon just kind of curled up into a ball and was like, please stop kicking me. I mean, you have these cool wings and you only use them for defense. They're basically giant shields, which Wonder Woman did again when she fought Cheetah. It's a little bit of a letdown to me. I did like, though, the POV from inside the armor as Cheetah tried to tear open the wings. That was a really cool shot. Although also they said that this is ancient armor. This is ancient armor. And then in a couple of shots, Gal Gadot was clearly wearing leggings. And I was like, that's not ancient armor. You just bought that. But she did look very cool when she emerged from the clouds. That was so neat. I was like, oh boy. And then she didn't do very much with the armor. And I do agree with some of you that the bustier on the armor is a little bit pronounced for armor. All right, so anyway, some of the still photos. I didn't really notice that during the movie. I noticed the leggings during the movie. I was like, that's Lycra. As for Cheetah, as I said, there was one scene I really loved. And that's when she came across that drunk again and she stopped him and she said no. And then she said it again. And I was like, this is so powerful. I loved that sequence. Even though I think a lot was cut from it because we saw them filming other stuff where she would leap up on a balcony. But here they decided to cut out most of the action and just have that emotional moment. And then also when that homeless man showed up, the only person, besides Pedro Pascal, but I was like, they should have had one more bigger role of a African-American character. Because, and then to have it to be the homeless person, I was like, come on, guys. I mean, it's 2020 or whatever, I know this movie's been in the can for a long time, but I would have fixed that. But when that guy came up and he's like, before she gave him a plate of food and now she was like, mind your own business. I was like, she is losing her humanity. I don't know why she would turn into a cheetah, but still, I thought that was, she could just lose her humanity. I thought that was cool. But I liked that scene. I thought that was Cheetah's best scene. But otherwise, they totally shortchanged the character. And as I also said in my non-spoiler review, there was too much of an emphasis on physical beauty with Cheetah and trying to get men to like you, and that was never corrected. And then one of you, I felt so bad. One of you DM'd me or tweeted me and said, Grace, do we get to see her transform into Cheetah? And I don't want to tweet out spoilers, so I didn't answer, but this is a spoiler review. And the answer is no. She just slinks off, the typical, I don't feel so good, and then the next scene, I'm going to be Cheetah. And then it also did, again, as I said, didn't make any sense as to why she became a cheetah. I mean, Max was using wishes and granting them to her. He'd be like, the cost for your wish is to give your strength to her. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy that. So I wish someone had been like, I wish I was a cat. Or if someone else had said, I wish I was a cheetah. And Max was like, hey, luck of the draw, that's what came up. You got to use it. I mean, that kind of would have cheapened the cheetah mythology from the comics, but at least it would have made sense in the context of this film. Again, it just here, I was like, why are you a cheetah? Then the action sequences, they had some problems. They were thrilling, but they never paid off because of these elements. The action sequences are themyscira at the beginning, the mall, the desert, the White House, and then versus Cheetah. And that's it. I thought there should have been more action. So the problems with the action sequences. I feel they're a little too cartoonish in the wire work and the tone, and in this, they don't have the excitement that I think people are looking for in today's comic book movies. Then the VFX is a little wonky, and also on Pedro Pascal's face when they de-aged him at the end. I was like, this movie's been sitting around for how long? How have you not fixed that? So I felt that, the VFX work, I think, could have been smoother. It almost seemed like it was a choice to make it that wonky. But my biggest problem with the action sequences was that in every single one, except the opening, because she had still to learn her Wonder Woman ways, Diana insisted on playing defense. And while that's very much with the character, so I totally get that choice, I think it's not particularly rewarding from an audience perspective, that Diana's always holding back, that she's always just blocking. I mean, it's a little, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit like the difference people say between the NBA and the WNBA, right? In terms of a spectator sport. And I don't like that comparison because, again, it's women versus men. So I don't like doubling down on that so much. But I mean, what can I say? That's the choice that was made here. And I wish that Wonder Woman had been a little bit, even just a little bit more proactive and aggressive. She even kept Steve from being aggressive. He's like, I'm going to do a sword fight. She's like, no, Steve. And you're like, let him do a sword fight. Please, I've been sitting here for so long. But again, they made up for the lack of action and only doing defense in other ways, I felt. So it was okay. Now for the big finale, which I said is a mix of fantastic and could have been better. So, there's a satellite that can go and take every radio wave in the world. So, Max feels he wants to get all the wishes that he can. And they say the particles, basically they use the terminology of how the satellite is described. And they're like, we're just going to go with it. Even Max says, good enough for me. And so because he has to be touching you to make the wish. So I guess he's touching your eyeballs with the particles in the TV. Whatever. Again, this is a movie where you go, okay, I'll allow it. And it was funny in that moment, they even kind of said that in the script. So he's getting everyone's wishes, and the world and everything's like really going out of control. Like I thought of that really great Anchorman GIF, where it's like, well, that escalated quickly, or meme, and I'm like, that's for this movie, and like the nukes are taking off, and I'm like, what's happening? This is crazy. And Diana, instead of fighting Max, the big moment in the movie is she talks to the public. I did like when she said, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to everyone else. I thought that was good because she put the lasso around his ankle because it has a mind of its own. That's how I guess it got on there. And she used it to show everyone the truth or to talk to them. Maybe that's why they all rescinded their wishes, which was very powerful. Everyone goes, I rescind my wish because this is just so nuts, so out of control. I wish I'd never done this. Maybe the lasso is what compelled them now that I think about it, because it wasn't very well explained, because I was like, no way everybody would rescind their wish. And Cheetah didn't, by the way. So I don't know why she lost her powers. Maybe because Max ultimately rescinded his wish because his son was in danger. They were like, you have 4 minutes to get into an underground bunker. And again, I was like, this escalated quickly. So I wish that had been explained a little bit better. I wish his emotional reason why, but I felt, even though it wasn't explained, I felt why he decided to rescind his wish. I had the feels. So that was there. But yeah, as a Batman person, I was like, no way everyone rescinds their wish. But so it was interesting that was the big end battle of the movie, right? Talking to everyone and reaching them emotionally. But I was reached emotionally. So again, I'll allow it. And I thought it was great to see a quick flashback of Max's life and why Max Lord was the way that he was. And it was a little cliche in points, but this happens to real people. And it explained why he had such a need to succeed. And then when he went and saw his son, I cried. It's not enough to make me cry now, but I thought it was beautiful that he said, "I just want you to be proud of your father and to love." He wanted to be someone he felt his son could look up to, and I knew his son was going to say, "You don't have to, Dad. I love you because you're my father." I knew he was going to say it, but still, it got me when he did. Even though, again, I really hate to say anything negative about a child actor, but I think they could have gotten a slightly better child actor because it took away from the scene just a little bit. But the scene was so beautifully written, and Pedro Pascal was doing such a great job on his end of the deal that you were like, this is amazing. So I loved that. I thought that was beautiful. And also, as I said in my non-spoiler review, that to feel such emotion and sympathy for the villain, is such a Wonder Woman thing to do. So it fits perfectly with the movie. But I'm like, I hope you didn't totally lose your wishing powers, because I'd love to have you come back, Max. Come on back, Max. You have an open invitation. I thought he was great. So yes, it's an imperfect film, but it's an ambitious film, and it's a gorgeous film, and it's a moving film. And again, I can't wait to watch it again, hopefully with you. I hope you'll join me. All right, so that's my spoiler review. Share your thoughts down below. This is a spoiler review, so go to town, but please get it all out here, and don't ruin the movie for anyone who hasn't had the chance to see it yet. Subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.